here to say goodnight. So thank you for your patience. Um, Anyway, in our data collection protocol, we do have opportunities for folks to report diseased birds, dead birds, and that gives us more information on how bird populations are doing and report to local managers if we think that there is a disease outbreak that folks should be aware of or if that should impact bird feeding practices locally. We also have several engagement goals. So, namely, we want to connect people with local wildlife. That just brings us joy and a sense of well being and fulfillment. And that connection also inspires appreciation and care for birds. We also serve as a public resource for information on birds and the practice of bird feeding. We just redesigned our website and it's just jam packed with wonderful information, FAQs, blogs, tutorials, interactive data visualization tools to help folks learn more about their local birds and to figure out which birds feed at which types of feeders and eat which types of different bird seed mixes. And we can also show you how your data fits into this big network of birders all over the country and really across the continent who are helping us keep tabs on winter bird populations. And finally, we want to help you all help us make our neighborhoods safer for birds. So the Cornell Lab of Ornithology is dedicated to monitoring birds and also thinking about the many ways in which we can make our built environment safer for birds and protect the habitat that birds need. And Project FeederWatch is a great way to learn about what birds need and also communicate that knowledge with our participatory scientists so we can all be doing the best we can for birds. So how can you participate? So first, you need to sign up. So you can sign up at our website, feederwatch.org. And there is an $18 participant fee. This fee supports all of our programming. It pays for our phenomenal research team to help run these analyses. And you also get some really cool swag. We send out calendars to help you keep track of your bird counts. We send posters featuring common birds. We also throw in some other little gifts every now and then. You're eligible for other promotions at the lab. You get a copy of Living Bird magazine. And this year we will be hosting some special live events just for feeder watchers. So if you're not in feeder watch, but you're a member of the Lab of Ornithology, you would not be invited. They're only for feeder watchers. So we'll be having some special webinars, some bird trivia nights, some watch parties. And these are all opportunities to get to know other feeder watchers, to connect with our team, to ask questions about to our scientists, and learn more about data collection, as well as just have some fun hanging out with other people who love birds as much as we all do. Next, you need to select your count site. As I mentioned, this should be a place not only where you enjoy birding, but also a place where there are resources provided to birds. So those could be native gardens, that could be a bird feeder. Most people have bird feeders. They're not required, but most people have bird feeders because let's be honest, it's really fun to watch birds at feeders. So we tend to have a bit more interest in putting out feeders so that folks can watch their feeders specifically during their counts. And then we do ask that folks fill out a short form. It's just a few questions to tell us a little bit more about the resources available to birds at these locations. Then you choose your count days. So ideally, you're monitoring birds on a weekly basis from November through April. You can sign up anytime. We accept new volunteers on a rolling basis. I do hope you all sign up and you can start your counts right away. Counts take place over 2 consecutive days. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you repeat that ideally the next week. But you can count birds as often or as little as you want. So if you want to do it one time, that's fine. If you want to do it every week, that's amazing. If you want to do it sometime in between, just a couple times a month, that's totally fine too. The key is 2 consecutive days with at least 5 days apart. So the most often folks should be feeder watching is once a week. Then you count your birds and your mammals if you want to. And the observation time is totally flexible. You pick the time of day that works for you. You can pop in and pop out, and you will eventually, as part of data collection, provide an estimate of how much time you spend doing this. But again, you can bird for as much or as little as you want. It's very flexible. You can submit your data online or through our mobile app, and I'll walk you through what the data collection looks like more specifically in a moment. In addition to submitting your counts, you also provide some information on the total estimated time that you spend birding. And then we also ask for an estimate of snow cover, which is, not relevant to you all, being where you are. But hey, maybe you're out birding in Lake Tahoe with some friends on a cool trip and you want to do feeder watching at the cabin while you're there, then you might want to tell us about snow cover. So what should you count? Again, we're counting the birds that are attracted to the habitat that we are creating and maintaining. So food and water you've provided, trees, fruits, or plantings that you maintain, as well as the activity around your feeders. So if you've brought in birds to your yard and then there's a bird of prey nearby, a raptor that is attracted to those birds, that would count. What we're not counting is flyovers. So let's talk about how we're counting. So let's say we see this lovely pine siskin on day one of our survey. It's a Saturday morning. I look out at my feeder and I see this lonely pine siskin having a snack. I'll make a note that the maximum number of pine siskins that I saw during day one was just one. But I repeat this on day two. And on day two, I see 6 pine siskins, which is amazing and exciting. And I tally 6. So what I do at the end of the 2-day count is record the largest number of each species that I've documented over both days. So I wouldn't record, hey, I saw 1 pine siskin on day one and I saw 6 pine siskins on day two. I would just say I saw 6 at most at any one time during the 2-day count. Happy to answer questions about this at the end. This is probably the most confusing thing about FeederWatch is how are we counting birds? And it's very different than counting birds for eBird, right? So I heard that you are all going to learn more about eBird in one of your upcoming meetings, which is great. eBird allows you to record all of the birds that you see or hear in a checklist format, and you can bird for as long or as little as you'd like. You can be stationary, you can be traveling, but you submit a checklist every time you're making observations. And instead, in FeederWatch, you're keeping a tally over 2 days and telling us the maximum number of individuals of each species you observed at any one time. So it's a little bit different. And this data collection is intentionally different. So we're thinking about birds and bird activity in different ways and really trying to understand over the course of a longer period of time what the activity of birds is in this smaller setting of a habitat. This can be tricky if you've got a lot of birds flying around. It can be hard to count. We just ask that folks do their best. Remember, we're not going to count birds that fly over our count site, and we're not going to count birds that we see on our non-count days. And I know this is really, really hard because if you see a rare bird on Tuesday, but you don't count birds until Wednesday, the heartbreak, right? Like you think that you're missing that bird, you think that we don't know about it. The good news is that we're at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So if you take out your phone and you record that rare bird as an incidental sighting on eBird, we're still making a note of that, and it's just not being brought into the FeederWatch database because we use these platforms to answer very different questions in ecology. So what about mammals? We record mammals in the same way. We follow the same protocol. We think about the maximum number, the highest number of individuals of any species that we see at a time. However, for mammals, we are using more general categories. We are still primarily interested in the birds. We might build out more mammal observations in the future, but for right now, we are recording a higher taxonomic category than species for mammals. So rather than recording gray squirrel or red squirrel, you would just tell us, hey, I saw a squirrel. We're also recording behavioral interactions in FeederWatch, and this is very exciting and something that is different than some of the other participatory science programs that are strictly focused on recording the presence and absence and number of birds. So we're thinking about 2 main types of behavioral interactions: displacement and predation. So in displacement, one bird, the source, tries to take over a resource occupied by another bird, which we consider to be the target. This resource could be food or proximity to a bird bath or a really good perch. So in this photo at left, you can see that there is a northern flicker that has flown in and displaced a European starling that has been using a food resource. So the northern flicker has won this interaction, has been more dominant. Predation is another type of behavioral interaction. In predation, one bird, the source, attempts to capture another bird, the target. At the photo at left, you can see that we have a sharp-shinned hawk that has successfully depredated a European starling. So in this case, the sharp-shinned hawk would be the source, and the European starling would be the target. And there's an opportunity in FeederWatch to record these exciting behavioral interactions that you see at your feeders, at your bird baths, at really highly used snags in your yard. And this is helping us to put together these dominance hierarchies and better understand how birds interact with each other and which birds are more dominant over others. And understand more about animal aggression and territoriality, these other really exciting aspects of behavioral ecology in the bird world. Project FeederWatch supports interactive data exploration with several different tools that you can explore on our website. You can actually look at your data specifically and mark changes over time. So we'll show you your counts week to week, year to year, and you can use these trend graphs to better understand how the wildlife in your yard is changing over the course of the winter season and over time. And you can also see how your data is plugged into this larger network. We provide distribution maps, trend graphs, and lists of frequently reported birds for all of our study regions. I've provided a map here of our study regions for FeederWatch, all the way from the far north to the southeast where you all are. And we provide a lot of information to birders about which species are in these regions, whether these species seem to be increasing or decreasing in abundance over time, and what the top species observed are. And we provide this for states as well. FeederWatch is not just about the data that we're collecting, although that is one of our primary goals. We also serve as a resource to the public on birds and bird feeding. We have many FAQ pages on bird feeding and planting bird friendly gardens on our website. We have a great interactive online guide to common feeder birds that allows you to type in certain things you're looking for in a bird or in a bird feeding setup and learn what birds eat what and from which types of feeders, so you can build a garden that works for you and attracts the birds that you're really excited to see in your yard. We also have these really cool quizzes looking at tricky birds and helping folks learn how to ID them. Those teals might have been a really good option. Those aren't classic feeder birds, so we don't have those tricky bird IDs, but goodness, that teal was really hard. We also feature participant photos. If you take really great photos of birds, we feature those on our website and include those in some of our science communication materials. That's a great way to build community. And we also highlight some of our really cool research. So I'd love to spend some time talking about some of our research findings, and then I'd love to take some questions from you all about FeederWatch. So this just gives you a taste of the kinds of exciting questions that we're answering with the FeederWatch data set. So here's a picture of a beautiful evening grosbeak. And some of our researchers a few years ago asked what seems like a very simple question. How have winter distributions and flock sizes of evening grosbeaks changed over time? And while simple, that's a hard question to answer as a field ecologist, right? Because we can't be everywhere and anywhere all of the time. So that's why we rely on participatory science. And this is an example of how powerful FeederWatch and eBird and NestWatch and some of these other programs are, because we're able to collect a lot of data on species that's highly specific to location and build these really exciting detailed maps showing bird distributions. So FeederWatch data allowed us to better look at the occurrence dynamics of these birds, and we found that these birds are not only changing in distribution, but also in flock size. So from 1994 to 2006, the average number of grosbeaks in a flock declined. And there's a lot of reasons why this might occur, but this is helping us keep tabs on how birds are doing. This same study also showed that from 1994 to 2006, there was a winter range contraction in some of our folks who were birding in, the Rocky Mountain region and up into the Pacific Northwest. We're not seeing grosbeaks as often, and the latitudes at which grosbeaks were found was much more constrained and much more limited. And this could suggest that between 1994 and 2006, there's been a significant change in habitat availability or temperature or weather patterns that is forcing grosbeaks into a smaller area that meets their physiological needs. So there's a lot to dig into here, but this is a really good example showing the power of participatory science data. In a similar vein, FeederWatch researchers have also asked, are North American populations of house sparrows on the decline? I know lots of people aren't, super keen on having house sparrows in their yard. They are considered, more of a pest or a nuisance species in many parts of the country, but they are really cool birds. They're urban adapters, And they are actually a species of major conservation concern in Europe, which a lot of people don't know. And in this study, folks looked at the predicted mean house sparrow flock size between 2001 and 2016 and found that the average number of house sparrows in a flock in urban areas declined over that 15-year period. So again, telling us something that maybe even those urban adapters are not getting the resources that they need to be successful today. My absolute favorite study that's come out of FeederWatch was focused on Anna's hummingbirds, which is one of my favorite species. I hadn't seen a Hannah's hummingbirds until I moved to Seattle for my PhD, and they're just everywhere in Seattle. They're beautiful and boisterous and just such fun birds. And we asked, well, goodness, we're seeing a lot more Anna's hummingbirds in the Pacific Northwest. Why is that? What is driving the range expansion of Anna's hummingbirds? And used FeederWatch data to dig into this. The lead researchers on this study really focused on the possibility of feeders being implicated in this range expansion. They noted the following map of sites without and with hummingbirds during the wintertime in 1997 and then later in 2013. And if you flip between these two, you can see that the range of hummingbirds, which essentially stopped at the northern border of California, expanded into Oregon and Washington and up into British Columbia during this time frame. And the rationale here is that provision of ornamental plantings in some of these urban areas and the availability of hummingbird feeders is actually allowing Anna's hummingbirds to persist in these colder climates in winter time at a more northerly latitude, which is just fascinating and really points to how much potential there is for humans to alter the habitats for wildlife in both good ways and bad ways. I also think there are a lot of emerging opportunities in FeederWatch that I'm excited to take the lead on. As I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in better understanding how fire and smoke disturbance impact birds, and I think that FeederWatch is really well positioned to help us understand some of those dynamics. That might seem counterintuitive because FeederWatch is a wintertime monitoring program. And when folks think about fire and smoke, they tend to think about that happening in late summer and early fall, which is when we see peak wildfire season, particularly out west, where fire is an even more important and prevalent natural disturbance. However, climate change is increasing fire activity all over the world, including here in the US, and we are seeing more and more wintertime fires. In fact, some of the biggest wildfires on record have occurred during the wintertime in places like Colorado and California. So, FeederWatch data could actually help us understand how birds are impacted by fire and smoke disturbance in real time and how bird populations build back, if at all. Do they come back to some of these places that have been impacted by fire and smoke during the wintertime in subsequent years? That's a question that we really haven't explored at all. I also think FeederWatch data could be used to help model disease transmission. So I mentioned that we use FeederWatch data to keep tabs on sick and diseased birds, but we haven't done a lot with FeederWatch data to specifically model how disease could move from count site to count site or across regions. I think there's a lot of potential there. We're also using FeederWatch data to better understand the connection between birding and well-being. So asking questions about how does seeing these birds make you feel? Do you feel lighter when you're birding? Do you feel more joyful when you're birding? And really trying to extract that why do we bird from our FeederWatch community in order to further motivate action to protect birds. I also really want to bring more people into this space and diversify participation in science and in FeederWatch in particular, and provide more opportunities to connect and build communities. So I mentioned our bird trivia nights and the watch parties that we're planning. FeederWatch is really fun, but it's often something that somebody does alone. And that doesn't mean that you are alone. Even if you're doing FeederWatch by yourself at your count site, there's a whole community of tens of thousands of people that are contributing to this data set. And so I want to create more opportunities for folks to get to know each other and ask questions and find support. And we also have lots of amazing resources, but there's always more we can do to share our research with the public. So with that, I would love to say thank you so much for having me. I know this was a bit of a short talk, but I wanted to make lots of space for folks to ask questions. And I'm happy to take any questions that folks have in our last 20 minutes together. Thank you again so much for the time and the space to share about this amazing program.
Great. Actually, we have a question. I was going to ask the same question, but somebody else did. Carol wants to know if a raptor perches in the oak tree in the yard, she can't tell whether it seems to be attracted to the birds that may be in the yard at the time. Does she count that?
That is such a good question, Carol. I would count that because I would consider your oak tree as a resource that the bird is using. So, what we're really trying to do, just to compare it to eBird, because I'm sure a lot of folks on this call have used eBird before, is to be more specific about the space, right? We want birds to come in and use the habitat that we're monitoring. And if we hear a bird that's like in our neighbor's yard and that's not our count site, we don't count that. But in an eBird checklist, you would, right? Like if you were standing on your porch and you heard a bird in your neighbor's yard, you could record that on your checklist. We really want this to be a list of birds that are using your space so we can better understand how those variations in microhabitat are impacting bird trends over time. So I definitely would count that. But I think that's a really great question. And I'm so glad that you asked it because that suggests that the way that we're explaining that is confusing. So now I can go back into our FAQ page and make that a little bit more clear. So thank you for that question, Carol.
And I have a question. The Anna hummingbirds, would the warming climate affect their expansion north too? Is that anything that they're also tracking in that study?
Yes, I do believe that that was something that they looked at, and the more moderate winters have facilitated some of that, I'm sure. But it was really interesting to see how the Anna's hummingbirds were seemingly persisting in more urban areas during the winter months because of this availability of ornamental plantings and feeders. But definitely something to really be paying attention to as we're studying range expansions and contractions. There are also limitations on how far birds can go, right? Like whether we're thinking about birds moving to further northerly latitudes or up mountainsides. There's only so far they can move, and where they go also needs to have the habitats and resources that they need. So it's a very complicated question, but one that is particularly well answered by participatory science data.
Nice.
Other questions? Again, I'm new to FeederWatch, and so I definitely wanted to create space to hear from folks about like what are your thoughts on this program? What other resources could we provide for it to be successful? What questions do you have about surveys? It's just such a great opportunity to actually be face to face with folks who are interested in joining our program.
Okay, and Carol said she had a little trouble using the app the first time. The birds I recorded didn't seem to stick the next time I opened the app. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's definitely a problem. That's not supposed to be happening. And I'm curious, Carol, maybe you can hop on and chat a little bit more with me. Is that something that happened to you this week? Because we had a lot of folks write in with this particular bug this week, and our tech team has been working really, really hard to fix it. And if you're worried about your data, you can send us an email and we can check to make sure we got it on our end. I'm pretty sure in all the cases we've checked, we did get the data. It's just a display problem in the app. But very curious if that happened to you this week.
Yes, the first day that I'm new to FeederWatch, and so I started on Saturday, and on Sunday when I went back to do my second day, it had only recorded 4 of the 13 species that I actually saw in the yard. And so I had to go back and search my memory. Luckily, I did an eBird list at the same time, so I was kind of able to kind of recreate it from that. And then, but I was a little leery of using the app the rest of the time. So I actually just entered all my data, online, which worked fine, of course. But I'm glad to know that there was actually a tech issue. It wasn't just me doing it wrong. So thank you for saying that.
No, it absolutely was not. And I'm actually relieved to hear someone else and say that they have this experience because it helps me better understand how to talk to our software developers about what's going on, because it can be really hard to duplicate the errors that people see with the app. Our goal with the app is to make data collection easier. So it's always frustrating when there are bugs and it makes it harder because it's supposed to be as good as seamless as eBird, but eBird's been around for longer. So we're not like quite there yet. So it's really helpful. And if you ever have any problems with the app in the future, please email our team or just email me personally and we'll try to get that sorted for you. And in your case, if you were able to go online and submit your data, I'm very confident that we have it. But if you ever just want to check, you can write in and say, hey, this looked funny on my end. I just want to make sure you got my data, because we are here to help and we're here to make sure that we have high quality data streams. The issue behind the scenes is that there is basically a display problem where you're submitting your data and it's not updating to the dashboard that you see, but on our end, we got it. But if you ever want to check, just write to us and I'll make sure that someone checks that for you.
Will do. Thank you. I'll try it again this weekend.
That would be
And
so
let you
great.
know.
Yes,
Thank you.
please let us know. We did all of this demoing all summer of the app and had no problems, and we're so excited to roll it out. And then this week we got like 12 people saying, hey, this isn't updating. And I was like, no, we worked so hard to get this perfect. How is this happening? But that's what happens anytime you roll out something new. And ultimately it's still worth it because in the long term, having the app I think will be really great for people, especially who do this on the go. But yeah, definitely some
I
roadblocks.
agree. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And welcome to FeederWatch.
Thanks. I'm excited.
Hmm.
So can I clarify something? You don't
Yes.
actually have to have bird feeders, correct, to be part of
Mm-mm.
FeederWatch. You just have to have a yard that might be attractive to birds.
Yes. And I think that that's a very difficult thing for us with branding. Historically, it was always about feeders, but we realized that there are a lot of people who want to help and want to submit data on winter birds who don't have feeders or who maybe um, don't have the bandwidth to upkeep them, right? Like a really busy mom might not be able to put out bird feeders or keep them full or keep them clean, but she has a weekend free and wants to submit data. We want to support that kind of participation in the program. So we've broadened the scope of what really counts as bird feeding, right? And then from a conservation angle, this opens the door to a lot of exciting opportunities to rethink what it means to feed birds. It is about the bird feeders and it is about the bird seed, but it's also about all the things that we do in our yards that provide birds with valuable resources. Bird feeding is not just about what's in our bird feeders, it's about the native plants that we're growing and the trees that we're growing and maintaining and the habitat connectivity across yards in a suburb. So there's a lot of ways to think about how we care for birds and provide the resources they need outside of the context of just putting up bird seed. So we're trying to move in that direction.
Nice.
And you also mentioned that someone doesn't actually have to do it in their yard if they have like a local park. They can
Yeah,
just
we've
go
found
there.
that some folks, just want to try this, and so they go to a park, a nature center nearby. Maybe the nature center has bird feeders, and they contribute data, a couple weekends when they happen to be hiking, and that works really well for them. So you're welcome to do that. I have found that most people who are in the program long term tend to like doing this at their residence because they like the opportunity to monitor birds over a long period of time in one place and track them. And because we provide these customized data visualization tools, and you can view them both on the app and on the web, it is a really cool way to actually see year to year how the birds in your yard have changed. So if you're going to a place that you're not at as frequently or you don't consistently observe, there'll be less fun visualization. So I think people tend to find that more rewarding, but you're welcome to do it however works best for you.
And I did feeder watch a long time ago at a school, and then I remember I did two different sites. You can do that, right? Keep it
Yes,
separate.
you can do this at however many sites you want. The thing that gets a little bit complicated sometimes is when folks have larger residences and they think about their residences inclusive of multiple count sites. We tend to want to avoid that because, so let's use my mom's house, for example. So my mom has a lovely home in the suburbs outside of Madison, Wisconsin. And she has a gorgeous backyard that she's invested a lot of time into planting native plants. And her front yard is a pond. And so it's two very different places. And I think her intuition when she started was, well, this is two different count sites, but the birds are really moving from the backyard to the front yard and the front yard to the backyard. So even though it feels like two separate locations and she gardens in two different ways, the birds are really moving across that space. It's too small to really tease them out. So what we would say for that is that's one count site, and include both of those like vantage points in your site description, and then record the maximum number of birds you see at either of those spots, the front yard or the backyard, for that one site. But if my mom also conducted her surveys at her YMCA that she runs, then that would be a second altogether count site. So here at my house, I have a bird feeder in the front and some gardening in the back. And so I have two vantage points. It's easiest to just have one vantage point, but if you can pop back and forth between two during your 2-day count, that works just fine for us.
Okay, that's excellent. Good to know. All right. Did anybody have any other questions? It is a lot of fun.
It is so much fun. It's so much fun. I mean, I'm totally biased, but I do feel like I have like my dream job. So it's pretty great to run the program. And I'm excited to think more about the smoke impacts too. That's really been the focus of my work to date, is thinking more about how smoke impacts birds. And I think there's a lot of potential to use the FeederWatch data set because fortunately there are a lot of wintertime fires. We evacuated from the fires in LA, so it's a topic near and dear to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I have one other question. A lot of people have the feeders that take pictures of birds.
Mm.
Are those countable as a bird or not countable if it's
That
during
is
the time you're monitoring?
an excellent question. I love bird feeder cams. I think they're really fun. They're a great science communication tool and a great way to get to know the birds in your yard. And every once in a while, someone gets a picture. That's crazy. Like yesterday, we received a photo of a leucistic house finch, and it looks bizarre. It's just a very bizarre looking bird. And they might have missed it. They didn't have their bird feeder cam. The thing is that we're really hoping to record the maximum number of birds that somebody sees, because that can be consistent from week to week. And unless you're going to sit through hours of footage, you don't really know when you just see like a couple minutes if you've missed something, right? So we're trusting that you are actually observing the birds that you're reporting, because it's really hard to go through all that footage and know what the maximum number is. Your vantage point is also a little bit different, right? So if you're standing on like a back porch, you're probably going to see more of your yard than if you have just a feeder cam. So you're also limiting your opportunity to observe multiple birds at one time, or better think about like the displacement dynamics that might be occurring at your feeder. So we don't encourage people, we don't allow folks to include the numbers from their camera in their count, but we do encourage folks to have the feeder cams because they're really fun.
Good question.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Do people often, those people that eBird, do they often do both? Like,
Yes, people often do both. Yes. And on the back end, we count your location as the same spot. So if you're eBirding from your house or you're feeder watching from your house, we do know that on our side of things. And that's actually great because it helps us to confirm things. So like if anyone from FeederWatch reports like a rare species, it's my job to go in and say, what was this? Do you have any evidence? What's going on? But often what I can do is just look at all the local eBird checklists. And if a bunch of other people also saw that, that's probably legit sighting. So it's actually really helpful when folks are submitting eBird data nearby FeederWatch sites. And again, eBird is a different protocol. Like we collect data in a totally different way. eBird also facilitates, and I hope you guys talk about this next week because lots of people don't use this feature, I find, especially new birders. But in eBird, you can record an incidental observation. So there are 3 different protocol types in eBird. There's incidental, stationary, and traveling. There's also an area count, but typically that only applies if you're like part of a larger survey effort that's more coordinated. So if you just see like a cool bird, but you weren't like intentionally going out birding and recording all of the birds that you're seeing and hearing in that outing, you can just do like a quick incidental observation. And FeederWatch doesn't support that, right? Like if you have to see that bird during your 2-day count, it has to be included in your total.
Okay. That's good to know too. Yeah.
Mhm.
If you see it during your count, you get to count it. But there's no way to just like pop into FeederWatch and be like, I just quick saw this bird, but it was a Wednesday and I only bird on Thursday and Friday for FeederWatch. Like that has to be through eBird. But that's why it's so cool to be at the lab because you know like I have colleagues in eBird, I have colleagues in NestWatch, and we all do different things. We come together and do science, and it's great. It's seriously such a cool job.
Sounds like it.
Great, yeah.
Sounds like it. Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions, so we really thank you for coming
Yeah.
tonight. And
Thank you for having me. This was
Very
really fun.
Very good.
yeah, and yeah,
Great
we'll definitely
practice.
be in touch for you to come back. I'm sure everyone.
That would be lovely. I would love to do that. And if anybody has any questions about FeederWatch, please send us an email. We can be contacted at feederwatch@cornell.edu. I'll also put my personal email in the chat. You can all email me if you would like. I hope you all sign up. I know sometimes the $18 can be a barrier. So if that's a barrier to access for you, just email our team and we'll figure something out. That should never be the reason why people don't sign up. But do know that if you contribute the $18, it is going to support this program and the research. And it's all part of the 40 years of nonprofit monitoring. So it is going to a very, very good cause and helping to provide all of the materials that we provide to help folks learn how to bird and how to feed birds.
Excellent.
Nice.
Very good. Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
Well, if you have anything else, I will be available via email. And thank you for having me. You're all just so lovely, and this was so much fun. And happy feeder watching.
yes, we will.
Yes. Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. See you
Bye.
next week.
Goodbye, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. Very good. And maybe you can get the painted bunting and go bunting like
I
Susan.
know. I wish that that would happen again. That was a couple of years ago, but it was a great picture, so I had to use it.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting and we'll have this available on recording. Oh, let me stop recording now.